is Sarah and Abby's Vegan Adventures, episode 8.
Again, forgot to pick a name before we started, so
The vegans tackle white privilege.
yes.
You like that?
Yeah, that title sounds privileged. Which is good. I think it should.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so this is really a conversation or an episode that's really geared towards it's geared towards white people, because what we've been listening to on social media and what we've been hearing from our friends is that they want the burden to shift. They want it to shift from people of color and minority people to white people, because the burden has been on them for too long to change the system and to stop prejudice and stop racism. And they need it to shift because they're tired, and they're sick and tired of being oppressed and having to stand up for basic human rights, and it's too much. So this is really a conversation that's geared towards white people, because we are two white girls who didn't understand privilege, and we want to just talk about white privilege, because that's what we need to do, and we need to talk about these issues with white people, because black people already know about it,
So they don't need to talk about it.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it. We weren't gonna do an episode about privilege, race, because a week ago we didn't really know a lot about it. We didn't really feel like we had much to contribute. But a lot has changed in a week.
I think maybe last week we felt
Awkward,
and that at least I felt like I didn't really know enough about it, so I didn't really experience it, and I kind of felt like, what am I going to do about it? It's not my topic, my topic is animal rights. I felt like I could just stay out of this, which is pretty ignorant of me.
I also felt, sorry.
No, you keep going.
No, I felt like it wasn't our place to really get in the conversation, because Black voices are silenced a lot. So I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, and I felt like this isn't our fight. But I think in the last week, just learning and listening to everybody, I think it's literally our fight.
Yeah.
White people, but we're literally the only people that can change this, and so we do have to talk about it.
Yeah, at the very least.
So let's talk about it.
Okay, so do you want to talk about how people feel really defensive?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's all over Facebook right now, because they're home and everyone's just all over Facebook, and a lot of people, I'm noticing, feel really attacked and defensive when you bring up the idea of white privilege. And when that, used to be said to me, oh, you have so much privilege, I would kind of, get offended and be like, what are you talking about? I'm not racist. I'm not privileged, because I was putting those two things together,
Yep.
White privilege, I thought meant that you're racist. No, it doesn't. You can acknowledge your white privilege and not be racist. Those are different things. And I think that's why people have a hard time with it, because they feel like they're just being thrown into the same category as these racist assholes by admitting they have white privilege.
Yeah, and I think for me it was kind of like, oh, well, if white privilege is a thing that you have, or you don't have. Well, then I don't have it because that's just not something I've experienced. But I think we watched a really great I don't know if it yeah, a documentary
Yeah.
um called Hello Privilege. It's Me Chelsea by the comedian Chelsea Handler, and she addresses her own privilege. And that's when it kind of hit me like um it's not something that some white people have and some white people don't have. It's just a thing that's there. So I
Mhm.
think that was kind of just like, okay, it's not that you have it or you don't have it. Like some people who are more, um, more into social justice don't have it, and people who are, from oppressive states have it. No, it's just there. So even if you can choose to acknowledge it or not, like it's still there.
It's like the flip side of a coin. If oppression is one side of a coin, then the other side of the coin is privilege. So
Yeah,
the flip side of injustice or whatever,
the
oppression
opposite. Yeah.
is, yeah, privilege.
And
In
so
order to
for
have one, you have to have the other.
mhm, mhm.
When one exists, the other exists.
And
Mhm.
when one group is down, the other one is inevitably up. And
Yeah.
so even if the laws on paper are the same now, which they're not, but even if they were, there's still 400 plus years of history where black people were down. And so inevitably white people were up. And it's nobody's fault who's alive today that what happened 400 years happened. But that doesn't mean that we don't benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to like accept that. Um
Yeah, and I also think that people take it as a personal attack, and like people are saying to them like, "Oh, you're privileged. You didn't work hard for what you have. You just got it all handed to you because you're white."
mhm.
That's not what it's saying either, because, you know, white people still work hard, obviously, like
Some. No, I'm
some.
just kidding.
Um Not some,
Yeah.
some. Um but it's simpler, but also, more complicated than that. It's just literally the opposite of the other side. Like that's what it is. It's a certain privilege that all white people have over people of color. It's there. And the fish example,
It's like telling a fish that they live in water. It's telling a fish who's already wet and living in a pond that they're wet.
and
They're
that's
in
all they've ever
mhm.
experienced, and they're a fish, and they like can't, like, that's just all they've known.
And so you're like, "You're wet." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And you're like, "Well, you're in water." And they're like, "What?" Like they don't know.
It's
Um
just something that constantly it's just their normal. Like it's just their life and it's their normal. So you can't, like, a fish wouldn't understand that. And that's the same with white privilege. You wouldn't know it was there necessarily. If you just grow up in it and it's all you know, you're not going to notice it. You didn't make a conscious decision to have this privilege.
well, and even if you grow up around black people, like where I'm from is very diverse. I still didn't notice it because I wasn't like it's I guess it's like you benefit from it, so you never notice it. Like you just think it's just all happening. Like I don't know. Um, I guess it's hard to explain it because you don't really know like. Let's try to explain white privilege because I think what the communities of color are saying right now is like we don't know how to explain white privilege because we've never experienced it. So it's on white people who like do understand it to educate other white people. Like I don't know. How would you, I guess, explain it to somebody who still doesn't get it? Um, It is hard to like see.
And it's hard to explain without like using examples. It's not being afraid or feeling like you have to hide who you are in order to get to where you want to be or to feel safe or to like feel like a fucking person.
Yeah, but people that requires people to put themselves in the shoes of others, and people can't do that. Like then, oh my god, my phone is going off.
Yeah, it's not mine. I'm on do not disturb.
My
Wow.
bad, my bad. That requires people to empathize with people who are afraid, and people can't do that. Like that's why people suck. That's why people aren't vegan. Or like people can't identify with other people. So I guess what did it for me? I was like, huh. Like I'll be honest, I really didn't think like it was a thing for all. Oh, okay, I remember in the documentary. I mean, they make it very like it's history. It's based in history. It's literally like slavery ended in 1865, supposedly. But then there were still, like people who did it illegally, people who didn't care about the law, people who, and then people were still so horrible to black people. I mean, still are, but like back then, I mean, horrible. Like, Secret Life of Bees.
Mhm.
That movie
Mhm.
comes to mind because they're so horrible to the black people, and slavery is over in that movie.
Mhm.
Black
Well,
people
and
can
then
vote in
yeah,
that
but
movie.
there was still segregation. Like after slave, yeah, it's not like slavery ended and then that was that. Like everything's
Yeah,
we're all together now. Like no, there was still segregation for such a long still I would argue still
yeah,
in some ways. Um so yeah, our like system is just like from and that's not long ago. Like
no,
all of those things were not long ago at all. It sounds like a long time ago, but like it wasn't.
no,
Um and that's what unfortunately like those are the roots of our country. And
yeah,
that so that's what makes it so hard to change and that's what makes people not even notice it because
right.
that's just who like we are unfortunately.
And it's like people who are alive today when they were born, there were just all different types of people already like here. But we forget like they they were literally kidnapped and brought here like and people don't we don't talk about it. There's
Yeah.
like one chapter in textbooks.
Mhm.
There's the same amount of I think in school you learn about black history for the same amount of time that you learn about the Holocaust. And the Holocaust was not to ever to diminish the Holocaust, but the Holocaust was a period of how many years? Like
Between 1941 and 1945.
so 4 years plus or minus. Let's even say it was 10 years. Let's say, we didn't know what was going on. Let's say that. Let's say it was 10 years. This is this was from the inception of the country to like what 50 years ago.
Yeah, like hundreds of years.
In middle school I remember one of my friends, she was frustrated and kind of yelling at the teacher, our social studies teacher, and she was saying why don't we learn about black history. She's like, I don't care about blah blah blah, the freaking 8 millionth white man that we've studied this year. Like why aren't we learning about black contributors to
Mhm.
history? And she was like I I can't, like, I don't I can't teach you that because it's not on our curriculum. She was like, I have to prepare you for the test. And that's not going to be on your test. You're going to get one question about Black history, and it's going to be about the civil rights movement or the Civil War, and that's it.
Wow.
And she was like, she's like, that's why I do, current event assignments. And this is an inner city school where 80% of the students are Black, and we didn't learn, like, that's an issue.
Yeah.
We just had a talk today with students, and they were saying, like, people don't know what happened. Like, there are some students who don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Like, they think that I'm not sure what they think. I mean, maybe that, like, slavery was like
Well, but also it's like what
a minute.
like the history is just so fucked up, all of it, that like they're not like they don't want to teach kids that because it's so fucked up.
Well, we teach the Holocaust, but we didn't do
Because
that.
that happened somewhere else.
Yeah, we shit on Germany all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. But even whatever. Okay, now I'm getting into a tangent because I was going to talk about like coming over here and the whole Christopher Columbus stuff.
Oh my God,
how
yeah,
he's some
Columbus
amazing
Day.
guy, and Thanksgiving happened, and the Native Americans.
Oh my God, yeah, okay.
Like, are you serious?
Wait.
Like, no. Pretty sure he killed so many people. Yeah. So the way we teach history is just fucked up. Like, it's just not right. But I don't know, like,
well,
how
that's
much
a
detail
policy.
can you go in to, like, teaching middle schoolers about this? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think we just need to have more. Like, when you're teaching the moon landing, talk about, Black astronauts instead of talking about white astronauts. I don't know, like little things.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about, like, since white privilege is so hard to, like, explain in, like, words, do you want to talk about our own experiences and what we've noticed that we maybe didn't notice?
Yeah.
Okay. He wants to go first.
Okay, yeah. I'll tell a good one first. Well, good in quotations. My siblings, my half siblings. That's rude to say,
She
right?
thinks she's so cool now.
No. Is that rude? Should I don't know. Okay,
No,
whatever.
her siblings, whatever.
And I were hiking, and we hiked over the mountain, whatever. It got late. The park closed. It was dark, whatever. So we went to the other side, and it was too late to, like, hike back. So we Ubered, and the park was closed, and it said, like, no entry, but our car was up there. Our Uber driver was a person of color, and he was like, oh, the street is closed. And we were like, oh, it's fine. Like, we left our car up there. Like, we need to grab our car. And then kind of like the three of us, after we, kind of said, oh, we need to grab our car, we kind of started thinking about it like, maybe this isn't safe. Like, what if there's cops up there? But, it didn't, it didn't become a privilege thing until we did see a cop following us, and our driver was frightened. He was getting nervous because he was afraid, I'm sure, of a lot of things, but of getting in trouble, getting a ticket. This is his livelihood. Maybe, probably of violence. So when we got to the top of the mountain where our car was, I got out of the car, and he was about to approach, like, our driver, like, what are you doing? And I was like, hi, officer, like, we left our, and we were drunk. So here I am talking to a cop. I'm buzzed. And I was like, hi, officer, like, we left our car over here. We got stuck on the other side of the mountain, and we took an Uber up. Like, we're really sorry. Like, and he was like, okay, like, no problem. Like, you guys safe? And we're like, yeah, yeah. He's like, okay, well, I'll follow you out. And, like, he waved to the Uber driver at that point. But, like, you could just tell, like, our driver was just so nervous, and I felt so bad. I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. I felt bad, like, for putting him in that situation. Like, that's not, like we didn't even think of, I don't know. We didn't even think of getting in trouble because we knew we would have been able to smooth talk our way out of it, I guess.
Yeah. And then we met up at the diner afterwards and got some,
yeah, we
like,
did.
Okay, so I just started noticing this within the last week. So, you know, part of my job is going to people's houses and picking up their dogs. Um, I work in a very wealthy area and it's predominantly white. And when I go to these people's houses, sometimes I've never been there before if I've never taken the dog. So a lot of times, I'm trying to figure out which door to go into. Is this door unlocked? Is this door unlocked? Where's the hidden key? I'm like picking stuff up outside. Um, Sometimes, if I go there and they're not expecting me and maybe I'll just open the door and I've never taken the dog before. They're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, the dog walker." And they're like, "Oh, okay." You know, and I'm never ever afraid of doing that. Um and when I'm snooping around these people's houses, going into the weird doors and picking up the key in their garage, like I'm never nervous.
Your van also looks like a rape van. Like, it's
Yeah,
not like she has, like, a dog like, a little sign on her van that says, like, "Dog walker." Like, it looks like she's a burglar.
yeah, it's just an unmarked like van. Um but yeah, like I'm in these like mansions snooping around figuring out how to get in. And I'm like, I've nobody has ever called the police on me. Nobody has ever answered the door and like was threatening to me, you know? Why? Oh, because I'm a 5'2" white girl, you know? Like 100%. Imagine if I was a black person, a black man doing this job, walking around in people's yards. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't go over well.
Mm-mm.
Um, so that's just something I've been like noticing the last week.
Um, here's one I just noticed while you were telling that story. Every time I've gotten pulled over, um, except for one. No. Every time I've gotten pulled over and I've gotten a ticket, I've been able to get it reduced because I have relationships with attorneys, either in the community or like who can give me advice on it. And they're either able to like give me like, oh, my friend can help you, or like I'll go with you to court, or like I'll write something up for you. And I think that goes to, first of all, like my parents, they have connections with people because they're white and they were able to be in that position. I babysat for people who had money, and and then also because these attorneys that I'm asking favors from are white, they aren't afraid to do a traffic ticket, a cell phone ticket for a little white girl. Like, I think if the people I knew were black attorneys or minorities, I think it would be harder for them. I think society expects more from them, and like, they would probably like be more nervous to just do a traffic case for, some random person. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Um, I kind of see what you're saying.
Today we are talking about these two professors, black professors. They can speak up and do events at the law school because they have tenure, but they're the only two professors of color with tenure. And so any other professor of color has to be careful with what they do and what they stand up for and like what they get involved with, because if they create too many waves, it's easy for them to just be like let go, budgetary whatever. But really, all right, your turn.
Okay, one time back in my younger days, I trespassed into this
Because you're
place.
older than me.
Yeah, I trespassed into a property that was owned by like an electrical company. So it was like probably not the best idea. Um, well, the electrical company like owns the nuclear power plant, so I was essentially trespassing like in the nuclear power plant. So I was with a boyfriend, and we thought it would be fun to like go down there, go swimming, whatever. And we walked by, I guess, like a security camera or something. So we're walking back to our car, and then we see a cop like waiting by my car. So I like literally booked it. Like I ran away to my friend's house. And not because I was scared for my life, but because I was scared I was going to get in trouble. And then my boyfriend, was, a smart ass and talked back to the cop apparently and was like kicking the seats and was being a dick.
He was in the cop
And
car?
yes. And guess what his punishment was?
Community service?
Community service.
How long?
Something stupid. So like, yeah, I trespassed and a cop saw me and like obviously saw me run away, didn't do anything. My white boyfriend was being an ass and got off
And
with
violent. He was
and violent and was definitely resisting arrest and got off with community service.
Did he have a lawyer?
Girl, I don't know.
All right. Yeah. I'm trying to think of more.
The times I've got pulled over, the fear was I'm going to get a ticket. This sucks.
My mom's gonna be mad.
Yep. Let me try to talk my way out of it. Bat my eyelashes a little bit. It'll work. So, my friend used to steal from Walmart a lot. And, like little things. And what would say she got caught? What's the worst that would happen to her?
A white friend?
Yes. The worst that would happen is probably maybe they would call the cops to like prove a point.
To scare, yeah.
But nothing would happen.
No.
What else?
Oh, well, the police one that I saw, you were just talking about it. It said for a white person, the worst case scenario when you get pulled over is a ticket. Like literally.
Yeah.
For a black person, the best case scenario is a ticket.
Wow.
Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Why do we have an issue with Black Lives Matter and white privilege? Like, why are we uncomfortable with that? Why are white people uncomfortable with that? Well, like white people. Like, I feel like that's like a dirty phrase, but like that's what it is.
Well, yeah, and I think it makes.
Well, like, why do what?
What?
No, I was
No,
gonna say,
you go.
why do I get to walk around and like be offended by, or not offended, but like weirded out by the term white people and feel like, oh, well, like it's not my fault. Like none of this, I didn't do any of this. Like, why do I get to walk around with that, but black people have to live with all of the stigma and all of the consequences of the history of the United States, but white people don't? And so it's like, yeah, we want like, oh, I don't see color, we're all the same. Okay, but the reality is in the history of the United States, we're not all the same. I guess it's like I guess it's like as a person, you like, no, obviously we didn't white people who are alive today, the ones who are not racist, like obviously the ones who are racist can go fucking die. Seriously. But I'm talking about the ones who are like, oh, I'm not racist. Like, what do I do? Okay, obviously, it's nobody's fault today. Nobody who is alive today did slavery. Okay, obviously, nobody's saying that. But I feel like, okay, we need to acknowledge that our black friends, are living with the consequences of white history, of American history. Let's just say American history. Our black friends that we love, that we claim to be like, I love everyone. Okay, they are dealing with the consequences of American history. So why are we trying to get out of that? Like, why do we think we're above that?
Because I think people think that since it wasn't them, they're not responsible. So why do they have to do anything about it? It wasn't me.
I know, but it
So-
wasn't them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's sad. Like, it makes me sad. Like, why aren't you sad and mad that your black friends or your black neighbors or black humans, the
Mhm.
people that are human like you, black people, are still experiencing the effects of American history? Like, don't you feel like, damn, like that's not really fair? Like, I get to get off scotch free from American history. Like, again, let's just pretend like American history. I'm I don't have to deal with it, but they do. Like, why are they taking all the burden?
Mhm. That's a good
So
point.
maybe that's a way, if you're someone who is struggling with that right now, um like, oh, well, I don't, I'm not part of the problem, so there's nothing I can do. Like, maybe that's a way you could frame it for yourself. Like, I don't want my friends, my family, like, just people, I don't want them to have to go through this alone. So I'm going to take some of the burden off of them by switching the conversation and talking about it and talking about what white people in the past did that was not okay. What colonists in the past did that was not okay. If you're uncomfortable with, calling them the same thing as you because you're disgusted by it, then call it something else, whatever. Slave traders.
Mhm.
Talk about it. Like, I think, I don't know. Somehow we have to.
The least we can do right now is talk about it. So I think like we need to start there and get people more comfortable. I think a lot of this conversation is always just like hush hush. You know, it's it's never just really a conversation that people had. I don't know. I've never had this conversation. Like I've never really talked about it because I felt like I wasn't racist, you know? So it needs to yeah, maybe we just need to call it something else or like explain it better, find some better analogy for it. I don't know, because people feel attacked when you bring it up and get defensive and then the conversation goes nowhere. So, I don't know.
Or just like stop. Like, it's not about. I mean, it's like weird for me to be like saying this because this was literally me like 2 weeks ago. I was like, I'm not racist. Like, what? Why does this apply to me? Okay, it's not about you as an individual. It's about our country.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't put children in cages when Trump was doing his whole nonsense, but I still needed to do something about it because I'm a human being, I'm an American, and that's not okay with me. And it's not okay with me that my black friends feel so uncomfortable and unsafe. Tell the
Mhm.
story about your friend.
Oh yeah, this was the post that made me like,
I thought that was your friend from high school.
yes, it was a post by my friend.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The
I thought
fuck?
it.
I swear. Okay, she literally always tries calling me out and like catching me in a lie because then I'll be like, wait, what?
Oh.
Don't cut that.
Mhm.
Or you're.
I'm cutting it. You can edit it if you want. Oh wait.
What? Okay, this is what we're talking about. I'm about to quit. Okay,
You-
anyway, so my friend made a post. I didn't know those two things. Like, I didn't know you can't have one. Whatever. She made a post, and she said that when she was in middle school, she's Jewish. She used to wear a Star of David pin, and then like the kids were bullying her and like picking on her, like making fun of her for being Jewish. So she took off her Star of David pin and stopped wearing it. And guess what? The kids stopped bullying her. Um, and then, she said, like, if you're a person of color, you can't just take your skin off and have
yeah.
people stop treating you a certain way. And I was like, wow.
And I think the issue is that prejudice and racism, I mean, it's subconscious or unconscious. A lot of the time, not a lot of the time, some of the time.
Probably a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, okay, bias, I guess, is subconscious and unconscious. So just things we have to check ourselves on I don't know, I guess, like, certain assumptions, like, having those automatic thoughts and then, like, making sure that you check yourself, like or, like, driving by, like, a certain area and, "Oh, this is, like, a mostly, like, minority area, like, they must not have worked hard." No, like, educate yourself about redlining.
Mm.
Um, Politicians literally created districts to keep minorities in for, like, property development and for taxes, and then that's what money gets paid to the schools, and, like, it's literally like, you can these are statistics, these are numbers, like, you can look at. So, um, you know, it's not just about working hard. Like, people who say, "Oh, well, if you're born, um, poor and just work hard." No, because the documentary we were watching or no, was this the little cartoon you shared? Historically, with the redlining, banks had to automatically deny people based on where they lived, and that meant, all of the black people who applied for loans had were denied. And so these poor white people were applying for loans, and then you had black people who had more money or like better credit basically than the white people applying, and the black people were getting denied because of their address, because of redlining. And then, oh, well, they should just go to a better school, live in a better area. It's systematic. Like,
Yeah,
this
it's
is deep. This is like,
and that's why people don't understand it though, and that's why people I think get overwhelmed and just want to like not talk about it because there's not an easy answer to why it is the way it is and there's not an easy solution to why it is the way it is. So it kind of just like I feel
well,
like
I think
people just
the easy answer is that the country was founded by white men. That's the easy answer. The easy solution is not. You're right. There is no easy solution.
yeah, so I think that's why people might also get like I think problems that are really large scale like this, people forget that they have individual power to make a change. Like this is just such a big issue that seems like what do we do? You know?
Well, and calling people out. Like, I think like we have to call people out too. We white people need to call other white people out when we say something offensive.
But like not even like call people out, but I think maybe cuz that's kind coming across as kind of like argumentative and like trying to start an argument with someone, I think it needs to be like used as like a conversation starter. Like with
But there's
family members,
nothing to
for
talk
example.
about. Like
No,
that
there is.
but
There
that's not
is.
appropriate. Like, okay, I'm talking about like, okay, I remember one time my mom told me she came home from the grocery store and she was like, "You know what happened today?" She was like, "The cashier asked me if I wanted because I guess she was getting all paper that day." And then she was like, "Do you want your meat in a plastic bag?" And she was like, "No, it's okay." And she was like, "Okay." She was like, the black people always ask for it in a plastic bag. It's so weird." And she was like, "That's not okay to say." And I don't know, things like that. Like that it's not a conversation that we need to have. It's not okay to say that.
Yeah, but you need to still have a conversation about it
With the
after you say
grocery
that.
store lady?
Yeah, yeah,
No, but that's what I think. I don't know.
but that's not going to change people. Just say like, okay, when people eat meat and saying that's not okay to people that are eating meat. That's not going to make them stop eating meat because we told them that that's not okay.
Well, no, but I think at the bare minimum, okay, because if I'm in the grocery store, I'm obviously not going to have a conversation. Realistically, I'm not going to have a sit down conversation with the cashier. But realistically, I can say, where there's a child, there might be a child listening, there might be a
A
black person
child,
across.
a
What?
child, a
I'm
child.
serious. A child.
There
You
might
watch
be a
Vines
child
now?
around. What?
You watch Vines now?
No, I'm doing like Titanic when they were like, a
Oh,
child. He has a child.
is that where that's from? They made a there's a Vine
No, no,
where
no. It
it's
was like, I have a child. At the
okay,
bare
whatever.
minimum, yeah, call people
No,
out.
like
At the
yeah,
bare
because
minimum.
there's a yeah, you never know who's listening, and just like we're not tolerating that. I mean, it's just like it's
Yeah.
disgusting. Like it's like literally, the documentary Hello Privilege. She went to the South. Where was she? Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia.
Like, they were at where were they? Oktoberfest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In October. Mm-hmm.
And they were like, I'm doing a documentary about white privilege." And they're like, "Okay." And she's like, "Do you think like what do you think about it?" And they're like, "I mean, I don't really think it's an issue." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, do you not like you don't think it exists?" And she's like, "No, not anymore." And
While
then
they were in their mansion with
oh
like
no,
all
yeah, that
their.
was a different people. The South, I guess yeah, we're from. Do they know where we're from? We're from New York, so yeah. So she goes and meets with I think another celebrity maybe, and then like she had all her like white ladies over,
Oh,
like with hats, and they were having like hors d'oeuvres outside, right?
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you could picture it. And she goes to them like, "Yeah, I'm doing this documentary about like racism," and they were like, uh, uh,
Yeah. Like they didn't know what.
they said that racism doesn't exist anymore. They said that people of color have benefits in America, or they say that they benefit. And then so she goes, what benefits do they have?" They go, "Well, they get the thing on the colleges, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, they do. That's a pretty big deal now." Uh, uh,
Yeah, they did say
and then when the one lady said, I guess I do think there is some white privilege in America. Her friend, her white friend was like, "What? You think there's white what? You think there's white privilege now in America? What?"
that. Yeah, she got
Wasn't she tight?
pissed.
She was
She
so
got
pissed.
pissed.
She was
She's like,
so
wait, what?
pissed.
You think that?
And she was like, and the lady was so quiet. She's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, I think with our history, we can't deny that." And she's
Yeah, they were
right.
pissed at her. They were pissed.
But
They
they
were
were
pissed.
pissed at her. Yeah, they were. That to me was crazy.
It was a good documentary, though. You
We
guys
didn't
should
even
watch.
finish it. We didn't even finish it.
Oh, that's awkward.
Well, we stopped when she went to her
No, like that's awkward because I finished it.
Oh my god. I have tears in my eyes. I
Yo,
swear
Abby
to
gets
God.
pissed. Abby cries. Abby like
What?
wants to like leave her life if I like if I brush if I
Oh.
brush my teeth without. I remember one time back in college, she got like actually pissed.
Yeah, because you know what?
We were in a fight because I brushed my teeth. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so you finished the documentary without me.
We only had 4 minutes left.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Go check right now.
I'm going to actually. I swear to God, if there's more than 4 minutes, I'm gonna be very like hurt.
It's 4 minutes.
Okay. I'm logging
Well,
on.
on my TV, it was 4 minutes.
Oh, now it's on her TV. Can you talk about white privilege? Because now I'm upset. So I need a minute.
So I think we have to look at this as not like whose issue is this? This isn't my issue. It's a them issue. No, it's all of our issues. And we have to do our part and realize that like we can help on an individual basis. It's like when we tell people to go vegan, a common argument people say is like, it's not going to make a difference. They're just one person. This is a whole industry, and that, animals are still going to be eaten regardless of if they personally go vegan. Yeah, they are, but less of them are. And you're still, being being the change you wish to see. You're leading by example. You're you're having a voice, and you're sticking up for people who have no voice. That's the whole, fundamentals behind veganism, is doing your part as one person and helping to spread awareness.
Mm.
So that's what you have to do in situations like this, even if it seems like the issue is so much bigger than you, because it is. If everybody had that mindset, then nothing would ever change ever.
Every problem in society starts with it's still a problem. Like, you're never gonna have a problem, and overnight it's not a problem. Like, it has to start with a few people doing a few things to make it a little bit less of a problem. And then also, like, okay, well, Sarah and Abby, animals don't have a voice because they literally can't talk. Black people can talk for themselves. Okay, but see right there, I'm gonna stop you because that's the privilege that we, as white people, or people not of color, if that's your preferred vernacular, or Caucasian American, if that makes you feel more comfortable.
Mhm.
Talking to you, Betty. I can't say Karen because my mom gets really like hurt because her name's Karen.
Did
No,
she really get hurt?
yeah, she's like,
Oh my god, Karen.
I know.
Please.
Anyway, that's the privilege that we don't understand. Like, we literally feel like we can say whatever the fuck we want. 3 weeks ago, there were white men and women standing on City Hall property with guns talking about how they had no rights in America because they had to wear a face mask in public because
Mhm.
there's a pandemic that affects national health.
Mhm.
We can say whatever we want because this country was designed for white people. It was designed for white people.
It was
So,
built by white people. It was designed by white
mhm.
people.
Oh, not okay. Here's an example for white people who are a little bit slower to catch on.
Mhm.
The world was designed by a right-handed person.
Ooh.
Everything that we use is made for right-handed people.
Mhm.
Left-handed people struggle because by design, things were not built with them in mind because a right-handed person made them.
Mhm.
So the Constitution, yeah, it's supposed to be about like freedom and, break away from England and be free and whatever. But black people weren't considered people when that document was created. So, no, they don't have a voice for the purpose of this conversation because the white people, not you, who designed this country didn't want them to have a voice. So that's why you use your privilege that you didn't choose to have. Nobody's saying you picked to be white. You chose to be white. Like, nobody's saying you're a bad person for being white. Of course not. But understand that your life hasn't been harder, and it actually has been easier because for others it has been harder because of how they look. It's like I mean, stigma. We can all agree that stigma is a thing, right?
Mhm.
People with physical disabilities are naturally, like, there's a natural bias to just assume that they um, can do less than non-disabled people, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I think what the point of white privilege is like people of color have to walk around feeling like people look at them differently because of how they look. Try to think about the first time that you realized you were white. It was probably a lot older than when most people realized they were black or they were of color.
Mhm.
I remember, again, I went to a really urban school district. So I was in kindergarten. We watched My Friend Martin, I think it's called. And it's about a boy and two boys, they're best friends, um, in like the 90s. And they go back in time. And when they go back into one's black, one's white. When they go back in time, they're not friends anymore because it's during segregation.
Then the white kid, like, he can't find his black friend, and then, like, he comes to find out, like, they can't talk to each other because they can't be in the same areas. And then it, like, flashes between that and, like, the civil rights movement, like, real footage. And yeah, so I was really glad they, I don't know, I mean, now I'm really glad they showed us that. But that was the first time I realized, like, okay, that, I'm white, some people are black, like, and I pictured, like, what it would be like to not have, like, my black friends, or, like, just the black people in my life, because there were black teachers, there were black school bus drivers, whatever. There were just a lot of black people around me, and that looked really sad to me. Like, that didn't look like a world I wanted to live in.
Mhm.
TV, movies, like, everything, like, music, art, like, I don't know. So I would just, I think that's, like, a powerful thing to do too. Is, like, if you've ever had anybody in your life that doesn't look like you, like, just picture your life without that person, or literally having that person, like, on another side of the fence. That's literally what it was like less than what, 100 years.
Yeah. Less no. Yeah. Less than 100 years ago.
When did you realize you were white?
I think maybe when I had a friend who was black, and then, like, my grandma made a comment, actually. Like, cause we went to the movies and hung out at my house, and then we had to, like, bring her home, and, like, we stopped at my grandma's or something. Um, and my grandma made a comment, like, something about, like, mentioning that she was black. Like, she didn't say anything, like, outwardly, like, nasty, cause I was in, what, 1st grade? But I remember her like, pointing it out that she was black, and I was just like, "Yeah? Like, is that weird or something?" You
Mhm.
know? Like, I was so confused. Like, why are you bringing that up?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with anything? Um,
So first grade.
yeah.
A lot of the stories that like we're seeing on being shared and stuff is like our friends are in preschool and younger than that they were called the N word or
Mhm.
like spit on. Um and these are people our age. Like this was less than 20 years ago. Like
Yeah.
um I remember so even though I knew I was white, I didn't like notice anything different about it. I was just like, okay, that is crazy. I'm so glad it's not like that anymore. Um, and then I remember we were like driving in the car. I was with my mom, and then like I saw a man outside the window, and like I was scared because it was like a man. Like it didn't think anything of it, and so I like put my lock down, and my mom was like, "Don't do that," and I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Well, you should never like put you're locked down when people are near you because you don't know if that might hurt their feelings because they might think that you're afraid of them because of how they look. And I was like, oh, but I was just like, it was a guy near the car. And she was like, yeah, but it doesn't matter because that's like, I don't know. She was just telling me like, you need to be like, you need to think about other people's feelings. Like when, I don't know, when you do stuff like that, like,
Mhm.
um, and I was like, oh, huh, okay. Um, yeah, I don't know. If you're still saying all lives matter, you have to stop saying that because white lives already do matter. That's the reality of it. We know that by
I
the
saw
statistics.
a good post about that too.
Ooh, what
It
did
was
it
like
say?
it was like listing things like I forget, but like one of them I remember was like, remember when the Boston Marathon bombing happened
Yes.
and people were like saying like we're Boston strong, like Boston, Boston, go Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was saying, oh well, what about New York?
What about Chicago? Yeah.
What about LA? Like what? Boston only matters? Like no, it's because
Mm-hmm.
Boston is getting bombed. They just went through something, like they're going through something.
And you like the fire one?
Oh yeah, the fire one, where it's like if there's a fire in someone's neighborhood, in a house fire, and the firefighters go to that house and deal with the fire, are the other people going to say, well, what about my house? All houses matter. We have to take care of my house too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, your house does matter, ma'am. Karen. But this house is like on fire, so we have to address it.
Yeah.
Okay, like, can I compare it to dogs?
Yeah.
It's like I really like to advocate for pit bulls. The umbrella term, bully breeds. Let me
Oh my
say.
god.
Does that mean that when I make a post about like pit bulls, does that mean that I don't care about golden retrievers? No, it's because pit bulls are having an issue right now and we need to address it. Other dogs still matter, you know?
Or literally like when we talk about like legislation for animals for animals used in agriculture, like it wouldn't make sense to be like, well, what about cats and dogs? Okay, do you realize the amount of protections that cats and dogs already have?
Still
And the
not enough,
privilege?
might I add.
What?
It's still not enough.
No. But it's like to get if you want everybody to be equal, like we have to. We have to play catch up with Black lives before we can
Yes.
address. Oh, I mean, yeah, we need to
Yeah.
play catch up. That's what we're doing. We're playing catch up.
Yeah.
Blue
Yeah.
Lives Matter movement is not, don't say that, because a blue life is not a life. It's an occupation, it's a career. At the end of the day, you can take your uniform off, you can take your badge off. Yes, it's a noble job. Yes, it's a very important job, but it's not your skin, it's not your identity. You can hide that. The All Lives Matter movement is non-existent because
People are only saying all lives matter because people started saying Black Lives Matter.
right, and Black Lives Matter is a movement to get justice and equal rights for Black people, and saying all lives matter right now, it's not appropriate because there is a movement called all lives matter that is directly in opposition to
Yeah.
Black people. And so it is racist to say all lives matter because you're not acknowledging the fact that white lives already do matter.
The news like the new. How many stories did we see about the white man being pushed by the cop and his head getting bashed in on the pavement?
Yeah.
That was shared like wildfire. It happened like it was shared immediately. There's been the officer was already like fired. Like we have reports on how he's doing, like in the hospital. Everybody's outraged, Black people and white people, which they should be. But how long did it take for people to be outraged about police violence against Black people? Like that's the difference. Like we already care about white people because white people started this country. And I think I actually read that this was a microaggression, but I still think that this is like a good starting point for people to understand privilege, or not privilege, but like trying to empathize is like being a woman. You're walking alone on the street. It's night. You're a woman. Like I guess just try to envision that, but all of the time. I think that's the closest you could get to that experience, and even then you can't relate because if you are even with one other person, that feeling goes away. And especially if you're with a man, you're not scared, right? And you can always call the police, and the police will be there. And even if it's a false alarm, they'll, oh, it's okay, honey. Black people don't feel comfortable in this country, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I just lost my train of thought.
Where did it go? The train station?
I've never heard that one.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Sorry about my list right now.
Please, do some research of your own. Definitely check out literally just like Wikipedia, the history of like policing, the history of like why like police dogs, the history of literally just like a timeline of the United States history and like how long Black people in America have been free versus how long they were considered property. Just look into those disparities and then, try to reflect on how like those issues are present today. And just thought of a quote from that movie. For every $100 today that a white family has, a Black family only has $5.05. So it's not just about working hard. It's about what you're born into. Like the Kardashians are born into money. White people are born into years of having a head start. So just look into that. Literally on Wikipedia. Like you don't need to write a thesis about it. And then check each other. Let's check each other and talk about it and change it. All right. Bye.
Bye, folks.